May the Force be with us.
The Force is strong in my family. The Force is strong in my family. My father has it. My father has it. I have it. I have it. My sister has it. My sister has it. You have that power too. You have that power too. In time, you'll learn to use it as I have.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Chewie, we're home.
My Nerd World.
And welcome to it, Star Wars fans. It's episode number 58 of the My Nerd World Star Wars podcast. And I took last week off. No good excuse, but I did. And I'll be honest with you, I almost didn't do this week's podcast. Really no excuse, but except to say that I wasn't exactly in the most Star Wars-y of moods. Got a lot going on in my life right now. I lost a good friend and fellow talk show host, Jerry Doyle, this week. And I say that, though. I say I lost. I mean, Jerry and I were friends. And I made a joke when I found out that Jerry had passed away earlier this week, that I was dealing with a range of emotions that I am not used to dealing with, because I haven't really lost anybody that I've been very close to in my life. I mean, there's been relatives that have passed away, but no really close personal friends that I've ever lost or had pass away. And so it was dealing with, some emotions that I hadn't been used to dealing with before. And so again, it was one of those things where I knew going into this weekend I hadn't done a podcast in a week. I didn't do one last weekend. Things have been too busy, and I wasn't 100% sure I was going to do one this weekend. But I sat down and watched. Well, I tried to watch all of The Force Awakens, and it was I had one of those weeks where I had something going on almost every single day since Wednesday. I was at work for about 5 hours longer than I normally am on Wednesday. On Thursday night, I had an event I had to go to. On Friday night, I had an event I had to go to. And then first thing on Saturday morning, I had an event I had to go to. So I'm a homebody. I do not like being away from the house that long. I don't mind going out and meeting listeners and doing events. It's just, again, I am somebody that likes to be at home. So I had been really, really exhausted. And on Friday night when I got home, I decided that I really wanted to watch The Force Awakens again, but I was just so tired. I got about halfway through and I just started dozing off. And I don't like to do that. I like to be able to finish movies. I try not, especially movies that I love, I try not to go and split up the time when I watch them. So I really want to go back and even though I've seen it a gazillion times now, I really want to go back and finish it because, again, I like to sort of be, OCD about it. I want to complete the movie. There was something, though, about watching it again, and it's one of the things that I'll talk about in the podcast this week, and that is it has become, and it is, I'm finally ready to say that The Force Awakens is just infinitely rewatchable. It is such a good film, and really has enhanced all the other movies and brought another level of appreciation to all of the other films. It was something that I thought that it was going to do. It is something that I believe that Rogue One is going to do. But going and watching any of the older films, I find them that much more enjoyable just because I have a hunger and a desire to see everything in that galaxy far, far away. And it just brings another level to all of it. Like watching A New Hope and then seeing the Millennium Falcon in A New Hope after seeing the Millennium Falcon in The Force Awakens, it just, for whatever reason or reasons, it just has become even more enjoyable for me to go and watch. So I'll get into a little bit more of that because there's something on Star Wars Newsnet that caught my eye, and it brought me down just mentally. It started taking me down this particular road that I wanted to talk to you about. I've been reading Lost Stars. I don't read a lot of Star Wars novels. Lost Stars is the first of the new canon that I've been reading, and I love it, although there is something about it that I'm surprised nobody has brought up or mentioned. JJ Abrams recently mentioned what movie he would like to see, or what story he would like to see made into a Star Wars spin-off film. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'll tell you what my fantasy movie is. I've had an idea for a Star Wars movie, kind of knocking around in my head. And usually when I'm out on my bike rides, I kind of kick around this idea when I'm listening to other podcasts. And so we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the fact that there hasn't been hardly any news. And that's kind of where we'll start the podcast today, is that it's kind of been all quiet in a galaxy far, far away. And I'll talk about why that's a good thing, why I think that's okay, but at the same time, also why I wonder if Disney is doing themselves a disservice. So that's where I think we'll start. We'll start with the fact that right now it seems as if as it relates to Star Wars, after Celebration, things have gone eerily quiet. It reminds me quite a bit about, and the best analogy I can give is a Star Wars analogy. It reminds me of those shockwave bombs. I don't know exactly what they were called, but the shockwave bombs that came out of Slave One being piloted by Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. And you know the ones I'm talking about, and it's become somewhat common knowledge that Ben Burtt, who does the sound design for the Star Wars movies, likes to not have as much music and likes to really play around with the sound effects. And that shockwave bomb that comes out of Slave One during the asteroid chase sequence between Boba, Jango Fett, and Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Jedi Starfighter in that asteroid field above Geonosis, where the bomb comes out, and right when it explodes, there's this moment of silence before the twang, and the shockwave ends up blowing up the asteroids. Both of my boys, and I do too, they love that. Every time I watch Attack of the Clones, they always mention how much they love that scene and those shockwave bombs. And Ben Burtt intentionally creating that silence void before sort of that twang, like a rubber band being snapped, and the shockwave goes and breaks up those asteroids. It kind of feels like right now we're in an extended sort of silence before the twang. And it's a little bit more prevalent because a lot of people came out of, and I mentioned this in episode number 57, a lot of people came out of Star Wars Celebration somewhat disappointed. You know, that sizzle reel we got for Rogue One was cool, but it wasn't a trailer. You know, it's August. You know, the movie comes out. Rogue One comes out in December. We still don't have a full trailer yet. And I'm wondering if one isn't on the horizon. I mean, remember, by now we had the teaser 1 trailer. We had the full teaser 2 trailer for The Force Awakens. And we had a sizzle reel. Right now, we just have a sizzle reel and the one original teaser trailer, and we don't have anything else. And you've got to kind of let Disney do what Disney's going to do. I mean, these guys obviously know what it is that they want to do in terms of marketing, but it is really quiet right now. I mean, I'm on Reddit Leaks, which is where I normally go. I go here a couple times a day, and there hasn't been anything new here from 2 days ago. There's a story about Andy Tudyk revealing some character details for the assault droid K2SO in Rogue One, but really nothing specific. There's a new spoiler site out there that claims to have all this information about Episode 8, trying to be the next MakingStarWars.net, but I'm not really buying a lot of what they're selling on there. There's a report about how Hayden Christensen and Han Solo will not be in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I never thought that they were going to be. There was some talk this week about a potential Han Solo trilogy. And really, that's only stemming from the fact that the actor who signed on to play Han Solo. Let me pull his name up here. So it's, is it Alden Ehrenreich? Is that right? Nobody gets it right. I'm surprised by now. I mean, I've talked about him before, and I've read so much about this individual. I'm bringing up StarWarsNewsNet.com, which is going to play into my next part of the podcast here. But there was some talk of him being involved in a trilogy of Han Solo movies, but really that was only because he signed on for 3 films. And that's something that like Disney does with most of their actors, is that they sign them on for multiple movies. And so one website decided to get clickbaity with the story and decided to say, well, will there be a Han Solo trilogy of spin-off films? And wouldn't you know, at the moment I went to go look up his name, the internet went down. Yeah, no, it's Alden Ehrenreich. So there was some leaked artwork from Rogue One that came out this week, but it's been taken off of the Star Wars Leaks page. And that was about it. I mean, there really hasn't been much of anything else in the way of news. That leaked artwork was pretty cool. Nothing too specific as it relates to storyline. The only thing in it that I thought was awesome was that there was a sort of a rectangled winged TIE fighter that was in one of the pieces of artwork, and I just thought that was cool because I always thought square wings or rectangle wings for a TIE fighter would have been the obvious choice in sort of retrofitting X-wings in prequels. Right, that to me always seemed like, yeah, there should be rectangle or square-winged TIE fighters that look older leading into the TIE fighters that we know now. So I think that would be really cool if we ended up seeing one. Oh, we did find out that the TIE Striker for Rogue One, this is a bit of news that I thought was neat, just because I'm such a fan of the vehicles. The TIE Striker in Rogue One, which essentially looks like, if you haven't seen it, it looks like they took half of the wings of a TIE Interceptor and put them on top almost like daggers above a pod-esque cockpit for what you would normally have being the ball. It looks more like a pill, like a pod with the TIE Fighter windows in the front. Apparently that TIE Striker is for in-atmosphere surveillance and fighting. It can go in outer space, but it is specifically designed for in-atmosphere flight. And so that's sort of your way of saying, hey, we made a new TIE fighter that you guys haven't seen before. And the reason you haven't seen it before is because there hasn't been any need for it to be in any of the other films, because we haven't had a circumstance where there's been, in-atmosphere fighting, right? So, I'll take the logic. I'm down with that. So again, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe we've just been spoiled. And we did get some stuff out of Star Wars Celebration, but I think most people were a little bit disappointed that we didn't get more, especially in the way of a trailer. We got a few items as it relates to toys. They had some AT-ACTs, some AT-ACs, and that's armored cargo transport is how they go and change it. So they had one of those there. I thought that was cool. A toy, one that actually walked and you could use your smartphone with it. So I thought that was neat. They also debuted a Hera from Rebels Black Series figure, which I thought was awesome that I want. They've done some Black Series figures for Rebels. They did Ahsoka, they did Kanan, and now it looks like they're doing Hera. And these are sort of real-life versions of the cartoon version of the characters, and I didn't really care for them. I didn't really care for the Ahsoka one, and the Kanan one I was kind of meh. The Hera one looks awesome, so I definitely want that one. Sorry, I'm crossing the list of items off of my topics for the podcast today. So, yeah, things have just been really quiet. But again, maybe it's the calm before the storm. Maybe we'll end up getting a Rogue One trailer before Suicide Squad this week. Nobody's talking about it. It would be awesome if Disney just dropped one since we didn't have the trailer yet. I don't know what other major movie is coming down the road that Disney could go and attach it to, but it would seem to me they would want to get the hype machine rolling for Rogue One. We're supposed to have Force Friday coming up in September. So, I mean, we're less than a month away from toys hitting the shelves, so I would think that we should be getting a trailer at some point in the very in the very near future. All right, let's move over to